Hello. This is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and welcome to another live feed. We are ending eating disorders using nothing but your brain. So we are talking about overeating and out of control eating and food obsession. And we are talking about binge eating and bulimia. And we are talking about the body hate. And we are talking about thinking about food all day long. All of those things. We are talking about freedom from using nothing but your brain. And hello, welcome. So fun to see you guys on. Feel free to hearts and likes and comment and share your experience. And we're going over something really neat today. So I want to launch in. We're going to be doing a few parts of a series based off of a really wonderful book that I would highly recommend. It is called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. The audiobook is really good. It's very entertaining and approachable. It's just absolutely fantastic. And so it is by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, I believe is how you say their last name. And it's just really, really fantastic. So we are going to be going over in this part of the series a few of the principles they talk about in the book. And then I'm going to be talking about how they relate to food, food crazies, food struggles, food addiction, whatever label you want to put on it today, that issue. And so we're going to be talking about how those things relate. So hello, welcome on you guys. All right, so as we dive into this, it's really fantastic. And I wanted to give a shout out to our amazing Rise Academy members. So what we do is we end eating disorders. We have a program called Beat the Binge that shows somebody, even if they have been struggling for 40, 50 years with food issues, how to, in a handful of weeks, have everything they need and to actually practice that to see the transformation so that they can be out of crisis and free with food. And it's super powerful and it's fun and we know exactly how to end eating disorders. So it's wonderful to get to see that every day. But then there's the rest of your life, right? Then there's like, wow, I have all of this mental energy back and I have my health back and I know who I am now and I'm able to deal with emotions and I'm so much happier than I used to be. And I've been putting off all of these dreams. I've been putting off my life because I've just had this one problem that I've worked on over and over and over. And so what's really fun is we have a high-level mastermind community, which is about the skill and the process and journey of becoming the highest version of yourself. So once you are out of crisis and you can actually do what you want to with your life, being able to have the principles of guidance to do that. So we talk about some really amazing principles there. It's about being your highest self. It's about, being in your most happiness and your joy, like the sort of joy that is not impacted by circumstances, being able to overcome obstacles, being able to reach goals and dreams. It's just a lot of fun. I love our community. That community is called our Rise Academy, high level mastermind, and it's just great. So we talk about all sorts of amazing principles there. And I actually had multiple members of the Rise Academy reach out and be like, Lydia, this book is so good. Lydia, this book aligns so well with the principles that we talk about in Rise Academy. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get it then. And I'm so glad I did. It is. It's very beautifully aligned with what we do. It really adds and is complementary. And so I'm going to dive into some of the principles they talk about and how it relates with food today. For those of you who, no matter what point of the journey that you're at, to just add a lot of value here for how these things all go together. So again, this is about a book called Burnout. I'd highly recommend it. And here's some of the principles that they talk about. So let's dive in. And again, hello, welcome. So fun to see you guys on. Feel free to say hello. Let us know that you're here. And share as we go along. I want you to think of if you've experienced these elements that we're talking about from the book in your life, and your experience, maybe how they relate with your food journey, or just sharing your story here. All of that is so very welcome and amazing to have you guys here and making this community an awesome place. All right, so this book is about stress, but it's about so much more. So one of the principles that they talk about is that we have this stressor, right? Like we have the thing in our life that comes up for us that promotes the stress. But then we have the stress itself, and it's a separate thing. And it's different dealing with the stressor versus dealing with the stress. And even if the stressor goes away, that we still have the stress that we're dealing with. And what happens if we don't deal with the stress? So how connected to like our mental state and our physical state and our health stress is, right? So when you have these high levels of stress, it's very entertaining and approachable in the book, but they also really delve into the science behind it, which I just love. So they're talking about how stress, I mean, it's inflammatory. I mean, like there are all these chemical responses that happen. There are so many diseases related to, I mean, like the main causes of death nowadays are not from being eaten by a tiger. It's about the feeling all the time that you're being eaten by the tiger, whatever that tiger is. Like those are the things that kill us, right? And so just that there's huge consequences. Like people are literally ending their lives, like it's a detriment to their health when they're dealing with the stress and they're not able to deal with it. So they have some really wonderful tools of not just dealing with the stressor, but actually dealing with the stress and resolving that, which is just really beautiful. And then they talk about a couple of elements that help us to know how to manage the stress in our lives. So one of the principles they talk about is a knowing of when to give up. So they give an example of there is like, a little squirrel or whatever out in the forest, and it's foraging for nuts and berries. And there is a point where instinctually the squirrel knows when to give up. It's like to stop looking there, that this is not going to be fruitful. Yes, you might find some nuts and berries, but you need to go somewhere else to accomplish your goal. And it's this knowing when to give up. And it's an important thing to pay attention to, because if we just sort of keep on hitting our head against the wall with something that isn't going to work out, that there is really good stuff about knowing when to give up. So that's a principle they talk about in the book. Now we're going to switch gears over to what we're doing on our live feed today and talking about how it relates with food. Now, with the stress that comes from food, a really hard part of knowing when to give up is that you can't give up with food. If you don't eat, you die. If you don't fix your relationship with food, that also will kill you. And so it's this rock and a hard place. And this is one reason why there's so much stress associated with food, is because it's not an optional goal or a circumstance. So in the books, they're talking about like, if you're looking for, a promotion in sort of an impossible situation, or, if you're pursuing a relationship that just isn't going to work out. And a lot of those goals are optional. Like you can accomplish them or not accomplish them, and it's not a life or death thing. The issue with food and the stress around that is that there isn't an option to give up. You have to keep going with food. Like you will approach food every single day of your life, with maybe some few exceptions if you're into like fasting, but you are going to be approaching food every single day. So even when everything inside of you is telling you this is a dead end, to give up, this isn't working, this is hard, pick another goal, that there isn't an out with food. Because we are either going to make it work or we're not. And the we're not is an option. Like that's why people like die from, eating disorders are one of the like highest mortality. Like a lot of people die from eating disorders, especially women, all the time. And it's this constant stress that doesn't go away. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to look at, is knowing when to give up, and then how difficult it is because with food, you don't have the option to give up. Another principle they talked about is that you will have suffering in life, and stress is not an optional thing. Like we're all going to go through stress, but that we can deal with pretty much any amount of suffering. Like human beings are so equipped to deal with any amount of suffering when we know why. So think about and this is my example, but think about childbirth, right? Like that's painful. That's a long amount of physical discomfort or pain for a long amount of time. And then even after you have the child, like there's a lot of stress that goes along with that. Like parenting is not an easy thing, staying up all night, like trying to keep another human being with no immune system alive, like recovering from, the scarring and the, physical changes that happen through childbirth. Like that's a lot. But think of, there's so much of a why, right? It's like, okay, there's a lot of suffering here, but we know the purpose behind it. We know the why. It's like, I'm bringing another human being into the world. Like, this is the way you do it with your body, right? And so people are able to handle a huge amount of suffering when they know why. Now, talking about how this is connected with food is one reason why suffering around a struggle with food is so difficult, is because for a lot of us, we have no idea why. So what our clients find out very quickly, even within the first week of coaching them, is they know exactly why they have been doing this, and they know exactly how to end, like the binge eating or the overeating or the compulsive eating or the food obsession or the body hate or whatever it is, right? They know exactly where it came from, and knowing why is a huge relief. But for a lot of us on this journey, like if you Google like, why am I eating so much? You will get tons of different answers that are all like 25-year rabbit holes that a lot of them are just climbing a ladder up the wrong wall. Like, that you could do that for the rest of your life and it would never fix your problem. But you don't know that, right? Because you're on this journey where you don't know why you're doing it. And so people can deal with a lot of suffering when they know why, and it's really hard with food because there's this constant wondering of why. Why is this a struggle? Why do I keep doing this? I know what my goals are. Why am I sabotaging myself? Why can't I stop thinking about food? Why, even when I have diabetes and know that this can kill me, do I keep on binging on sugar? There's just so much why. There's so much of a question mark. And then there's even more of a why, because it's not like we wonder why all of the human race struggles with food. It's we wonder why we are struggling with food because we can see that other people aren't. We can see that our skinny husband eats a piece of cake and forgets about the last few bites and walks away and then has to throw away the rest later because it gets dried out and isn't thinking about food all day long. Like, we have real examples. It's not just like, oh, some people on TV, some celebrities seem to not struggle with food. It's like real people in our life that we know that aren't just like lying to us, that aren't just, struggling with food just as much as we are and have an easier time hiding it. That we can see that other people don't struggle, and then we see that we struggle in such a massive way. And there's all of this why, which makes the suffering around food struggles even worse, because we don't have the why behind the suffering. This is something that we think should be easy, should be natural. We should be able to do it. I got my PhD. I have an amazing career. I have a wonderful relationship. I got this promotion. I went through this hard time. I've raised 10 kids or whatever it is. And then this thing that should be simple with food is the most difficult thing in my life. And so that why, that question mark around that, is just an added, really difficult part of the suffering. And so it's understandable why it's so stressful, right? So in the book Burnout, they talk about how suffering with meaning, people can withstand a lot there. And so it's understandable that if it feels like this struggle with food is unbearable, well, it's because you don't have a purpose, you don't have a why, and that makes it even harder. So of course you're at huge levels of stress. Okay. Another thing that they talk about in the book is what they call the monitor. So the monitor is a knowing inside yourself, or a feeling of frustration that comes up when things take more effort than expected. That's when we start to get burnt out, right? So if you expect to be able to use this example of like, if you expect to be able to drive to the mall in 20 minutes and then you're hitting red lights and there's an accident and there's like all of these things in your way, and all of a sudden the thing that you expected to take 20 minutes is now taking 2 hours, then that's when that frustration and that burnout starts building, right? So it's whatever goal that you have, there's an expected effort to get there. And the burnout just increases and increases. The more that it gets dragged out, the more that it is more effort than we expect. And so the monitor is when you start feeling that and you see, wow, okay, like that's why, right? Because there's so much more effort going into this. Now, as we look at this from a food perspective, there is the amount of effort that we feel food should take. I make a plan. I stick to that plan. Maybe I do some meal prep. Maybe I do some special shopping. The end. I want to lose 40 pounds. These are how many calories I need to eat in a day. I have a plan to do that. I'll stick to that, lose the weight. And then I'll just go back to normal eating and I'll make healthy choices. The end. I have a goal of, being healthier. So, or if you don't even want to make a food plan, right? The expected effort is like, I'll wake up in the morning and when I'm hungry, then I'll eat something. And then when I'm full, I'll stop. And then I'll wait till I feel hungry again and then I'll do that. For a normal eater, it's a non-issue. Like that's just about the amount of effort that it takes is hardly any effort. Normal eaters, they're not tracking their breathing, they're not tracking their heart beating, and they're not tracking their food because they have hunger and fullness signals. And so we have this idea that the expected amount of effort, even if you're doing some special things, trying to lose some weight, trying to be healthy, is very easily outlined. Here's a thing that we do, and we can stick to it just like we stick to anything else. And then there is the reality of the effort that it takes. So this is the effort that it actually looks like. I wake up in the morning filled with guilt and shame of how I ate the day before. I am spending effort all day trying to make up for that. I'm spending all day beating myself up for it. I look at myself in the mirror and I beat myself up for it. I take a shower and I beat myself up for what I've done to myself with food. I, get winded walking up the stairs and I beat myself up for it. I do so much work to try to make the right meal plan. I've done hours and hours of research, 4 or 5 hours a day. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm, listening to audiobooks. I'm doing all the research on the right way to eat. I'm, trying to figure all of this out for myself. It is such a huge amount of effort to be thinking about food all day long. When I eat, I don't feel like I'm doing it right. I don't feel like I'm ever good enough. I'm beating myself up because of that. I'm going and then I'm binging at night and I'm undoing all the progress that I did during the day. I'm losing sleep over it. I'm snappy and moody with everyone around me and they don't even understand why I'm, so angry and resentful and snappy because they don't know how much I struggle because I'm hiding this from everyone around me. I'm super worried about my kids and passing this on to them. I am worried about my health and I'm wondering if my heart beating fast, if I've done some permanent damage to my heart. I'm doing some dangerous things like maybe some diet pills or things that could have long-term damage on my heart, or I'm wondering if it's the damage that, I did, 4 years ago or 10 years ago or 40 years ago that is now caught up to me. I'm worried about how this is increasing my aging. I'm making a meal plan for tomorrow. I'm making these declarations. I'm getting an accountability group together. I'm hiring a personal trainer. Again, I'm going to be listening to some more podcasts on the way home. I'm now dealing with not being able to sleep and I'm tired in the morning. And this has been compounded every single day for 40 years. So when you look at the gap of your expected effort and then your true effort, for it to be New Year's and it's the 25th year that you've made a goal to fix your relationship with food or lose the weight and keep it off, there's huge burnout in that. Because you have a monitor, right, that is telling you hey, you're getting close to burnout because there's all of this more effort than you expected. And if you struggle with food, which if you're here, this is what we talk about, then there is probably a massive, you never would have thought it. You look back and 20 years ago, if you would have known you would still be struggling with this 20 years later, you would have spiraled into a deep depression knowing that this would be the next 20 years of your life. That's why people they are talking about just the frustration in their life and how much this is damaging their health, right? But what people tell us more than anything is they're worried about an emotional breakdown first. And it's because there's so much burnout that goes around the struggle with food. Oh, Leslie, hello, welcome on. So fun to see you here, Leslie. Okay, she's saying, OMG, I can relate to this burnout. I don't have to go through this anymore and I am free around food. Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, congratulations, Leslie. Love it. So much extra energy expended in my past. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that experience. I just want to say congratulations that you guys Leslie is incredible. Like, she's shown up, she has done the work. She is, somebody that has been in it. Like, she has chosen her freedom, she did the work, and now she gets to enjoy the freedom. Like, she gets to be free of that burnout for the rest of her life instead of expending it all on food for the rest of her life. So just like, yay, huge congratulations. So happy for you there. And you guys, like, this is what we hear from our grads over and over and over, is how much effort that it took. Like, sometimes people worry, like, oh no, like, could I get your help, Lydia? Because maybe the program will be hard. Maybe it will be a lot of work. I'm like, exactly how much work is it to have an eating disorder? Like, I promise you, like, the solution is not going to take nearly as long as your eating disorder does every day. What are you expecting, like 10 hours a day on your eating disorder? Like, the solution does not take like nearly that many hours, nearly that much suffering. It doesn't even have to be suffering. Like, it could be a really, really good time. In fact, if any of you guys want to chime in that are grads of our program and just talk about like how hard it was to have your eating disorder versus how hard, I'll put that in quotes, it is to get free from it, feel free to chime in with your experience, because that's a thing. So here's the fun reverse thing about that, is that people usually go into our, like, getting our help with the expected effort being very high, because they're used to doing things that take over their whole lives, that ruin their social lives, that take hours and hours of effort, that take willpower all day long, that are going to take them like a year to even like see progress happening. Like, we've had people who've done 25 years of therapy just like hoping they would have like some sort of change in their relationship with food at some point, and like they just gained 100 pounds during that time and it never fixed their problem. So a lot of times people come in with this idea of like, this is going to be so hard, it's going to be so much effort. And it's absolutely like work. Like, you need to put yourself into it, as Leslie knows. Like, you need to put yourself into it. You need to do the work. Like, all of that is important. But what we hear over and over and over is like, wow, like, I mean, it took effort, but that was way easier than I thought. And it was way more simple than I expected. And I could actually understand it and do it and then see results almost immediately. Like, wow. And so that's the fun thing about getting freedom in a way that actually works, is when you've spent 35 years doing things that don't work. Like, there's nothing that is more effort and suffering than putting your all into something that was never going to work in the first place. So it's just like, again, you're just climbing your ladder up the wrong wall. And it's a horrible feeling, right? To just be putting so much like back-breaking work and effort into something and just seeing like nothing come of it, right? And so it's a wonderful contrast. When you actually do what works, you're like, oh, I put in this effort, I see this result. I put in this effort, I see this result. It's just like, all right, I'll play that game all day long, right? So really, really fun. Oh, Leslie's saying like, this hard, and she's putting that in quotes, is relatively simple. I know, right? It's like, all right, what actually works to get you free is very much relatively simple. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Leslie. Just so beautiful. And then another principle that they talk about in the book is that it's a really important part of relieving yourself from burnout and to deal with the stress in life in engaging with something larger than yourself, being part of something bigger than just you, being part of something that is meaningful and a cause, and doing something in the world, being part of something. Now, what I love is that we have a phenomenal community. Like, people in our community, they love each other. They're just like, they just do. It's amazing. Like, we've created this incredible tribe and like family. Like, people are just super active and they're so supportive of each other. And it's just so fun because everyone's getting to like be their real true selves and freedom and celebrate that. It's just like this state of celebration. It's just a really good time. And we've had best friends come from this program. Like, it's really, really fun. And so that's a beautiful thing. A lot of times that's people's first sort of, like experience with their freedom is just like, wow, I'm not alone. Wow, I'm part of a cause. Wow, I'm part of something bigger. Wow, my freedom actually means a lot to other people. Like Leslie, like sharing these comments, like Leslie's experience and her sharing it, like she gets to be part of something bigger. Like, her story has literally saved lives, like with the people that Leslie has shared with. Like, it changes, transforms, and saves lives because you give people hope. Like, it's a beautiful thing. So that on itself is just wonderful. And that's on the side of freedom, right? Like once you're free, then there's lots of connection. But I love how they talked about this in the book. But as we look at it in the context of food, think of how many years we put off being part of something bigger because we have to lose the weight first, because we have to be thinner first, because we have to take care of our health first. Because why would I be part of anything to do with my goals or my dreams while I'm still this way, struggling every single day with food? And what happens is that when we're in this daily crisis and suffering, we don't even think about that. We don't think about goals. We don't think about our 5-year plan. We don't think about the life that we want to build. We think about right now, today, how do I try to keep myself from binging? Right now, today, how do I get through the day with this intense self-loathing? Right in this moment, how on earth do I get dressed when nothing in my closet fits and I refuse to buy larger clothes because that feels like heart-wrenching failure? It creates this tunnel vision where all we're focusing on is trying to get through the day. And so it actually holds us back from a huge piece of how we deal with the stress is being part of something bigger. Because, oh man, we have heard so many people in our community, and this is absolutely true. Like we have so many people with incredible hearts of like service and giving and helping people. And one thing that they tell us, we've seen just such a pattern in this, is that people hate how eating disorders make you so, like, I'll use their words, selfish, self-centered, inward focused. Because that's not who they are. They are giving, wonderful people that want to do great things in the world and help people. But when you don't have your own oxygen mask on first, like when you're drowning, you're not going to help somebody else when you're drowning. And so they're like, I hate how all day, every day, they're not part of something bigger. They're just like in this internal place. Like they can be right in front of their kids or their family that they love, and they're not there because they're just so internal in their head. It's an awful way to live. But we put off our goals and our dreams because we're not even thinking about that. If we do think about that, we put that in the category of, well, I can't even start working on that. I can't even think of achieving that because what am I going to do? Do it while I have an eating disorder? Like, I'll give you guys a couple of examples. We have coached so many people that they were putting off leaving abusive relationships because they couldn't imagine dealing with anything big in their life or doing anything brave while they were still struggling with food, and it was keeping them in horrible relationships. We have coached people who have put off being in relationships. They're not, and that's their fondest desire. They want to have somebody to share this life with. They want to have love in their life, and they are putting it off over and over and over because, well, I don't want to be with somebody who would like me in this body, or I don't want to be with somebody that I have to keep this a secret from, or, like I don't deserve being able to have a great relationship because I need to work on myself first. So they're putting that off. We've seen people put off getting their degrees and advancing in their careers because they couldn't imagine themselves struggling with this. And then, what are you going to do? Like have your promotion and have your pay raise and feel unworthy the whole time and be purging in the work bathroom, worried that like it's going to be like this violation that people are going to find out and you're going to have everybody scared for you in the office. Like people put things off because they're like, there's this huge thing in my life, whether it's a secret or not, there's this huge thing in my life that has to wait to happen. I know that for myself, like when I got into visualization and like, manifesting and, thinking of what you want in life and being an intentional creator, like all of that is just super great stuff. But you know what would happen every single time is it would just turn into a vision board of the body that I wanted to have. If I just worked hard enough, if I just starved myself a little more, if I just had some more willpower, because I couldn't see anything past that. Like, for instance, I wanted to go to Italy. My whole life I wanted to go to Italy. Since I was a little girl, I wanted to go to Italy. One of my favorite movies growing up was Enchanted April, and it was about these women that go to Italy, and I saw that when I was a little kid, and that was like my dream. And I could go to Italy. Like, I had the time and the funds set aside and the childcare. Like, I could have gone to Italy for years and years. And you know why I didn't? Because I didn't want to ruin Italy. because I didn't want to go to a place that I wanted to be my entire life and be inside a hotel room binging and feeling miserable the whole time and never going into the Mediterranean Ocean because there's no way that I would get in a bathing suit, and besides, it wouldn't even fit on me after I binged. I ruined so many vacations, and I wasn't going to ruin Italy. I spent so many vacations just telling the people that were there to hang out with me, or like, the family that was there, just be like, you go ahead. I've got work to do, or whatever excuse that I made. And I would just stay in the room and I would binge. You know how many times I was at the side of an ocean and I never went in the ocean? Because there was one time where I literally couldn't get my bathing suit on because I had binged so severely that I couldn't fit it on. Like, I didn't have clothes to wear. It was miserable binging, and it was miserable not being able to enjoy life, and it was miserable being isolated from people when we were supposed to be having memories made together. But I didn't even have the option to go out because the clothes that I had brought didn't fit. Like, I would have had to go down in my robe and buy bigger clothes to be able to go and spend time with my family. So I just didn't. I stayed inside, and I refused to ruin Italy that way. You guys might see the video on our channel that's something in Italy. It's about when I went to Italy. Yay! Because I was free. Italy's great, by the way. So it's these dreams, these aspirations, these bucket list things, these memories that we want to create, that these being part of something bigger, which is such an incredible human desire and need, and such a beautiful thing that just keeps on getting put off over and over and over because, we've got to fix this thing first, right? And so it's talking about these principles of this book, Burnout. And you guys, if you have any questions around this, or if you have any comments or want to share your story, go ahead and pop those in the comments now, and we can go ahead and go over those because we'll wrap up in a minute if we don't have more questions. But if we do, I can be on for a minute and we can hang out. So the principles of the book are really wonderful in how to not only deal with stress, but how to deal with stressors. They approach some things that are really important that a lot of people don't approach and address, which I totally appreciate. It's extremely well done. And it's just such an eye-opener to why these issues with food, because you never get a break from it, right? Food is not something you can give up on. Food is not something you get a break from. You are constantly in the state of either beating yourself up for something you ate before or worried about something you're about to eat, and you're always approaching another meal. It is a stressor and a stress that does not go away, and it just compounds and compounds and compounds. And so the book has some wonderful concepts for normal stress. But the stress of an eating disorder is something different because it is constant. It is not something you can give up on. And so to be able to have a life of calm where you deal with your stress, where you deal with your health because you don't have stress eating away your organs, it's so much about fixing the big thing first. You fix this problem with food, and yeah, you still have the rest of your life, but it's so much easier to deal with all and any of that when you've dealt with this issue with food. Because for all of the constant, grinding moments all day long that we worry about food, then once those are gone, you also get all those moments in your day back. You get that back. You get your mental energy back. You get your health back. You get your peace back. You get your sanity back. And Lydia, but I don't even know what that's like because I started binging when I was a little kid. I don't even know what it's like to have that back. Cool. You don't need to know what it's like to have it back. You don't need to have ever had it to have it back. It's been yours the whole time. This issue with food has just gotten in the way. You've had so many people that are I have no idea what normal eating is like. I have no idea what it's like to be free. Okay, cool. They do the work, and now they're free, and now they know what it's like because they're getting to live it. You don't need to know what it's like before you get there. You show up, you do the work, you do what works, and then you get free on the other side of it. And then you get to deal with all of the regular stresses in life, but you get you back in all of it. And that is such a fun thing. So the very first step in fixing that issue, so you can get on with the rest of your life, if you want to. Sometimes people have like this idea in their head of like, oh no, but I can't fix my eating disorder because then I will be forced to deal with all of these other things in my life that seem so big and hairy to tackle, and I just can't do it. I just can't bear to do it. I'm not ready. Okay, cool. So what do you suggest? Continue to have an eating disorder until that kills you, and then I guess you won't be dealing with the other problems. But it's like, you don't need to stay miserable and stay trapped to have an excuse to not deal with the other stuff. You can literally get free from the struggle with food and then choose to not deal with the other stuff. Stay in the bad relationship. Continue to have this health issue come up. Like, you could just still not deal with those things, but you don't have to hurt yourself in order to delay it. You could just feel incredible relief and freedom and then live life for as long as you want and either never deal with those things, or if you want to, you can, because you have the option to. It's about having all of the options in your life. It's about really having that power back. That's a beautiful thing. So just adore you guys so much. The first step to be able to be free from this issue with food is you go to lifewithlydia.com. And there's going to be a free masterclass there. If you haven't seen that, that's the perfect place to start. And then you can book a free breakthrough session with us. And that's at lifewithlydia.com/apply. But if you just go to lifewithlydia.com, it'll get you to the right place. So the masterclass is the first place to start. That's the foundation. And then you want to book a free breakthrough session. And we're going to work one-on-one with you to get your foundation of freedom and then help you to know what's going to get you to the other side of this for you and specifically what you're dealing with. And if we can help you, then wonderful. We'll show you how. If not, then we'll know what best where best to direct you and what resources are going to be best for you at that point. And again, this is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and we are signing off. Bye, guys. Mwah, mwah.